I don't read manga. Ugh, I've heard that so many times, and each time I hear it, fills me with a little bit of sadness and a little bit of curiosity, as in I'm filled with questions. Do you not read it because you just never got into it? Because you generally just don't read comic books? Do you dislike having to read backwards? Is it the tropes? Are you afraid of becoming a complete weeaboo? Only-chan, senpai baby. The fear is real, it's a daily struggle, and each day I find myself falling a little deeper into the void. But yeah, like, why? Just tell me why. Because I believe that great storytelling, or simply a great story, period, can transcend the media it's being told through. Whether it be manga, American comics, a movie, a televised series, or heck, even a podcast, if the story resonates with you, then you're probably going to be interested, and maybe even want to check it out. So unless you're really not into the idea of images and words being combined together to tell a narrative, then I definitely think there has to be at least one manga series out there for you. Note the desperation in my voice. Clearly this isn't my first rodeo at trying to convince someone they should check out manga. It is my first video though, so let's see how it goes. And speaking of stories that I'm hoping that you like, maybe there's one in this video. And if you're the one that's always trying to suggest a series to someone who says they're not into manga, this video might just be your next big recommendation attempt. So with that being said, let's get into it. Before we get started though, I'd like to welcome you to MangAnalysis, where I do little videos about the manga I've been reading. If you like what you've seen and would like to see more, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. Maybe even leave a comment. Let's get a conversation going. I'll just say it now so I don't have to say it again and again and again in this video. The series I'm picking are series that tend to avoid certain usual manga tropes. I think manga can seem a little weird from the outside looking in, especially if you don't really know what you're looking at. One quick Google of manga or anime can show you some pretty weird things. I believe some of those weird things are why some people tend to avoid manga altogether or make up bad assumptions about it. So all of these series, one could say, stay clear from certain staples of manga and opt to walk a slightly different path, which I think could help ease newbies into the genre, showing that not all manga has to be tentacles, fan service, sister complexes, and yellow-haired orphans striving for ninja greatness while their emo boyfriend is trying to kill their brother for massacring their whole clan over some generic Drifting Dragons. Let's start with Drifting Dragons, which to me feels like cheating. You got dragons, which like rock regardless of what type of media you enjoy, and you got a great cast of characters who all have some decent exposure to the limelight while fostering a beautiful sense of community, not only with themselves, but with the dragons. Sort of. Drifting Dragons takes place in a world where dragons are a huge part of the world. They're part of the fauna and the environment and are a cornerstone of each land's culture. They contribute to people's daily lives and livelihoods, and once hunted, make for great resources. What's neat about this story is while you do follow a dragon hunting ship, there is never a time where the dragons feel like the antagonist or a nuisance made to be disposed of. They're always treated with the utmost respect, and the crew makes sure to deliver that. Dragons in the series really defy the usual mold of what most people think dragons look like, coming in all shapes and sizes. Add to that some awesome art depicting these majestic, often funny looking creatures, and you got yourself a certified banger. This is a series I can easily recommend to someone who's trying to get into manga, as well as any veterans of the craft. Seriously good stuff. The Way of the House Husband. Comedy, as I've said before, is difficult to recommend because we all laugh at different things. Despite that, I wanted to include at least one comedy in this list. While The Way of the House Husband manages to avoid most of the generic manga tropes, it is still very much a manga, in the best ways. The story follows Tatsu, an ex-badass Yakuza turned house husband. While he lived as a formidable Yakuza, Tatsu was very intense. Now spending his time cleaning his apartment and making meals for his wife and hunting for the best sales, he is still very much intense, and it's hilarious. This series works so well for me because Tatsu takes everything so seriously and applies this incredible life or death mentality to the most mundane of activities. Going grocery shopping, high stakes life or death drama. Making a cake, high stakes life or death drama. Taking your dog on a walk, high stakes life or death drama. And you think it will get old, but it doesn't. A lot of Japanese comedies rely on some knowledge of Japanese culture to understand the humor, but I don't think it's the case with this series. I would be very surprised if you picked this one up and didn't find yourself chuckling, at the very least, smiling. Solonina. Solonina is fun for newcomers because it's short. Another reason manga can seem intimidating or difficult to get into is because of how long series tend to be. Can you imagine being like, wow, manga, can't wait to get into that, and then being given One Piece? Like, no. Solonina is short, sitting at pretty well one book. Obviously, being short isn't the only reason it's worth checking out. It's absolutely amazing. So amazing, in fact, that it got nominated for an Eisner Award, which is like an Academy Award, but for comic books. The plot is pretty straightforward. You got Maiko and Tanita, who are in a relationship, and both feel like their lives are going nowhere. Maiko works some office job she has no love for, and Tanita dreams of becoming a successful musician. Along the way, they both make decisions that will not only affect their relationship, but their very lives. It's honestly a beautiful little story that so many of us will resonate with. We've all been there, stuck doing something we feel nothing for. We all wish we could drop everything and finally focus on what makes us happy. Solonina explores that in depth and delivers a wonderful love story in the middle. Hikaru no Go. What's more convincing to get you into a media you've been avoiding your whole life than a story about a board game you've never heard of? Nothing. Hikaru no Go is one of my favorite series of all time, and yes, I know that means there's some bias here, but hear me out. Hikaru is just a regular, everyday, normal middle schooler until he finds an old Go board, which is essentially the board game in question, Go, in his grandfather's attic, and with that board comes Sai, the spirit of an old Go master. At first, Hikaru is very uninterested in Go, as I was, and then progressively becomes more and more into it until it's all he can think about, and that was me too. This series is great for newcomers because again, it's about something so niche and so specifically unique that there isn't really anything to avoid with this one. If you like board games, competition, great characters, and a surprisingly really moving plot, then I can't really think of a better story than Hikaru no Go. Fun thing about this series too, if you like it, then you'll probably want to check out sports mangas like Haikyuu or anime like Run with the Wind. Hikaru no Go isn't technically about sports, but it's pretty well a sports manga in the way it's structured, and one of the very best, which is funny because one of the best sports manga ever isn't even about sports. Take that, sports guys. Golden Kamui. Golden Kamui is a really fun package that has a bit of everything. It's a little more in touch with what you'd imagine a typical shonen manga story would look like, but it's also extremely out there and has some whack humor. While all that's happening, there's also a really beautifully crafted mystery that has kept me on the edge of my seat for 27 books so far, as well as displaying some fantastic historical lessons about the Ainu, Japan's indigenous population pre-World War I. The story follows Sugimoto and a Sherpa as they look for the skins of escaped prison inmates. The reason the skins are important though is because on them are tattooed hints for a long-lost treasure full of gold. Sugimoto and a Sherpa look for this gold for various reasons, but others are also looking for this gold. Some pretty nice people, but most of them are not so nice. You know, the promise of wealth tends to do that to people. The reason I think this is a good series for newcomers or naysayers alike is because it offers such a great variety of things to love. It's funny, has great art, educational, has an immaculate cast of characters, a wonderful story, but it's also unlike anything I've ever read in manga. It takes the usual tropes and archetypes, throws them out the window, and gives you a truly unique experience. You absolutely cannot go wrong with this one. Blood on the Tracks. Okay, if you've read this series and you're watching this video, you're probably thinking, what the fuck? I know, let me explain. I wouldn't recommend Blood on the Tracks to anyone, really, but at the same time, I think everyone should read this series because everyone needs to feel as uncomfortable as I felt reading this series. So the story follows Sai, a complete mama's boy, very, very much so. This gets kinda weird when one day his mom absolutely pushes his cousin off a cliff for making fun of his mommy complex. There starts the wildest thriller I think I've ever read. You get to delve pretty deeply into what motherhood shouldn't look like and what the consequences of such an environment can have on a developing brain. Truly disturbing, yet fascinating all the same. This truly is something that transcends the medium, and I really do believe that if you're simply into psychological thrillers, then this is it. This is your destiny. Pick this up. Seriously, it better be in your cart by the end of this video. I have no way to check if you would though, so I guess you're off the hook. Death Note. Okay, if you've seen any of my videos, then you might have seen this one coming. And yes, this is absolutely my bias talking here, but damn, Death Note should be read by absolutely everyone. I know a lot of people who got into anime by watching Attack on Titan, but I also know just as many people who had Death Note as their first anime, and that's what got them into it. Now, I believe the manga is even better, so I don't see why it wouldn't have the same effect. Death Note follows Light, a character called Light, as he finds a book that lets him kill people by simply writing their name in it. He then decides to kill all criminals in an attempt to make the world a better place, which, like, you know, maybe not the most cash money thing to do. This brings in L, a character called L, the world's best detective, as they hunt each other down in a twisted game of wits and intellect. Best plot ever. Seriously though, this ain't your kiddie manga, okay? It goes hard and it's cerebral, and only for the smart people out there. You like Rick and Morty, and are you one of the few intellectuals out there who got the high-level jokes? Well, then maybe you'll love Death Note. I feel like I did a terrible job selling this, and I'm okay with it because I'm talking about Death Note like in 8 other videos because it's my favorite manga of all time. Favorite piece of fiction ever. So just, it's the best, okay? Just do yourself a favor, read it now. Fullmetal Alchemist. Alright, I covered this series when I mentioned series that have an absolutely perfect first volume. Fullmetal Alchemist is also, funny enough, perfect all the way. Also, it's probably the closest thing we'll get on this list to a classic shonen, maybe even more so than Golden Kamuy, except it's so much more. Not more than Golden Kamuy, just, you know, more than the classic shonen. It's an epic tale of brotherhood and redemption, and so much was packed into this bad boy. Edward and Alphonse are brothers, and they're also very sad because their mom just died. Obviously, they do the sensible thing and try to bring her back to life using alchemy, only for that not to work, and Alphonse loses his body and Edward loses an arm and a leg. Sounds totally fair. While the series may seem daunting sitting at 27 volumes, it's honestly such a treat. The tale of these brothers is some of the most compelling and beautiful storytelling I've ever read. Not only are the 2 main characters immaculate, the rest of the cast is just as stellar. If you love any sort of fantasy setting with some sick steampunk influences and like hate racism, then you should for sure check this series out because there's some fun parallels there. The Girl from the Other Side. Alright, this is the manga series I think of when I think of a perfect series for people who say they don't like manga. Specifically for people who say they don't read manga but enjoy any other form of graphic novels or Disney or Pixar or things that make you feel stuff. If I didn't know any better, I would think that this was written by some elderly woman from the grasslands of Ireland or something. There's something so unusual about this one, and it's beautiful. Essentially, the story follows Shiva and Teacher. Shiva is a little girl, and Teacher is an outsider, which just means he's afflicted by a terrible curse and will destroy anyone he touches. Which, isn't super conducive to a cute surrogate parent-child relationship, but it's actually the best. Shiva learns what it means to grow up in a healthy, happy home despite everything, and Teacher finds out what it means to be a person and care for someone else. The art is absolutely beautiful, Shiva and Teacher are wonderful, and the coolest of all, this series is entirely devoid of any manga tropes or archetypes, which makes it absolutely fresh. I cannot recommend this series enough. Monster. Okay. This goes out to anyone who likes mystery, thrillers, whodunits, etc. I don't care if you don't read manga, read this one. This has to be one of the best, most expertly written mystery pieces I've ever read. And I gotta say, mysteries are my favorite genre of fiction. I've read and watched a lot of it. The story revolves around Tenma, a surgeon who one day has the difficult task of choosing between saving a young boy or a politician. He saves the young boy and puts his career in jeopardy. But who cares, right? He saved the young boy. Turns out the young boy is a genius serial killer and starts murdering anything and anyone. Tenma naturally feels sort of responsible for this turn of events and takes it on himself to find and stop the boy, Johan. I could speak all day about this manga. The series spans a long time, so you really get to see Tenma develop, which is neat, but also all the friends and foes he makes along the way. Never are the characters he meets shallow or unidimensional. They all come with layers and they all have something to give. Even the ones that aren't around for too long bless you with the best of times. I made a video about Urasawa and his works, and I mentioned that Monster feels like something greater than manga. Greater than just a story in a book. It feels important. It feels like something that will pass the test of time, and I strongly recommend it to everyone who feels even a little interested in what it has to offer. Sublime piece of fiction through and through. Wow, okay, that's it. Those were 10 series that I think could be well suited for naysayers of the medium. Manga is something that means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to a lot of people as well. Now, I'm perfectly okay knowing that some things aren't for everyone. Metal music isn't for everyone, but music as a concept should be. Curry isn't for everyone, but food isn't something people should straight up not be into. Well, I feel the same way about manga, and fiction for that matter. Sci-fi isn't for everyone, but fiction itself can be for everyone, despite the way it's told. If the story has an element that can make you smile, then who cares if it's told via word bubbles and images, or as opposed to only text on a page. I know this video won't convince everyone to pick up a manga, and it might not convince many at all, really, but if one person watches this video and takes the leap and tries a manga, I'll be very happy. Doesn't even have to be from this video, just go out and make your own research. Do you like Sex in the City? Well, type in manga that's like Sex in the City, and who knows what that'll give you. I don't even know. I don't want to know. Okay. Now, I'd like to hear from you. Have you ever tried to convince someone to read manga that they go along with it? What series did you recommend? Or were you at one point someone who wasn't interested until you finally tried it and now you enjoy it? If so, which series got you into it? Tell me in the comments down below, for I'd love to know. Hope you enjoyed this little video, and if you did indeed enjoy it, consider subscribing. This was MangAnalysis, and I'll see you in the next one.